Hello and welcome to the New Haven Independent Vlog News Summary direct from our assignment desk, otherwise known as my Compost Heap. Let's see what stories we're working on this week. Well, there were lots of winners and victories in New Haven. Were there losers? One of the victories was the group of people who want safe streets in New Haven, been fighting for decades. Cyclists, pedestrians, and people in cars, wheelchairs, and people in cars who don't want to get run over by maniacs. Well, after 12 years of trying, State Rep Roland Lamar succeeded in passing a law that's going to make it easier with a good set of rules for municipalities to install automatic cameras that catch people running red lights and driving way over the speed limit, and they'll get automatic tickets. Now, the winners of that is everybody who doesn't want to be run over by maniacs. The losers, you could say, are people driving these SUVs who are going way over the speed limit, looking at their cell phone, and potentially killing people. Now they might have to pay $50 or $75 tickets than we use to make our safe streets safer. They actually win too, because it's not good to run over everybody. Well, if you like to play Frisbee, I know a place you can be playing it without having to worry about a big building coming and taking the place, and that's the Playground Pocket Park on Kensington Street between Chapel and Edgewood. It's been there for a long time, made a lot of low-income housing, a neighborhood that needs parks and open spaces, but the city sold that park, or was gonna, to a nonprofit developer to build needed affordable housing there. Parks proponents went to court for years, fought an uphill fight. It didn't look like they were going to win. It was all legal, and there was political support for the housing, but they won. This week it was announced that nonprofit builder is going to continue fixing up a lot of housing right around the place, but not on that needed open space. It's going to remain a park. You can play Frisbee there. Now, some people think the loser was affordable housing, that they said you either have to choose between having some places green space for nature and kids and old people and everybody else to be out in their environment, or housing. I don't think it's either or. You can do both. Like right now, right next to that park, there's renewed housing being built on open land, like on a lot on Dixwell Avenue, the old Joe Greats, or by the boulevard. There's all sorts of housing being built, and there needs to be more, but we never have to choose between housing and parks. Or if we think we do, then we lose. Well, who's going to win when we play Monopoly? Let's see. We got this card here. Get out of jail free. That kind of feels like you win if you get that right. Well, Adam Carmen got that card this week for a second time. He spent 28 years in prison for a horrible murder involving 7-month-old Danielle Monique Taft back in the early 90s. But it turned out there was prosecutor misconduct. They never had the evidence to really convict this guy to prove that he did it. So he got let out. And this week he found out in state court that they're not going to try to retry him. He's out. Did he win? He kind of won. He also lost 28 years. Right next, down the street on Church Street by the federal courthouse, Gaylord Salters, another man who lost 20 years in prison, and then it was revealed they never could have convicted him. They had evidence that he did this gun crime they said he did, and he got out. He organized 7 days of protest looking for truth about what happened in the 90s and aughts in New Haven, where all sorts of people got sent to prison when they didn't have the goods because of prosecutorial misconduct or police misconduct. He added up that was 1,000 years lost for New Haveners who never should have been sent to prison. His idea, like in one case like Bobby Johnson, it wasn't just mistakes, it was outright crimes and lying by, in that case, a crooked cop who did that a lot of places. Gaylord Salters is pushing for the rules to change so that when the authorities do that, they get the card that says go directly to jail, and yes, they lose. Well, if you're paralyzed because of somebody doing something wrong, like the authorities, and you're using a crutch for the rest of your life, or you're in a wheelchair, like Randy Cox, are you a winner if you get money? Randy Cox just won a big case. He got a settlement for $45 million for the lifelong injuries he suffered when he was paralyzed, when he was put in a prison transport van without seat belts, knocked around, hurt his spine, and then dragged on the floor and mistreated rather than taking medical care by officers. The largest such settlement in the history of the United States. Is it a victory? Maybe a victory for justice, but I don't know if he wins. Well, for now, everybody won in the Edgewood Park, Coogan Pavilion Skate Park, when graffiti artists got a lot of spray paint cans from the Parks Department. They said, look, people are messing up this pavilion, and while the skate park's there for some people, there's also a pavilion where you have programs, especially in the summer, for young people, elderly people, everybody else, and when people are tagging it with fuck all over the place or body parts, it's not a place for everybody. So they covered the place, covered over all that stuff, but then gave the spray paint to graffiti artists, said, do it up, express yourself, make it nice the way you think, just leave out the stuff that makes it not for everybody else too. They did it. It was a win-win, and if it stays that way, we won. Well, the knapsacks were a win-win at Art Space. You know that great organization? It had roots in New Haven in the 80s. It really flourished in the 90s. Since then, at the corner, the Chamberlain Building, at the corner of Orange Street and Crown. Well, it's just announced that they're closing up shop. Like Long Wharf Theater, they said, it's not working anymore. We're going to figure out what we're doing in the future. We're not going to be based at a building. And people say, what a loss. All the great things that happened there over the time. I think it was one of the great organizations we ever had. You know, when Columbine happened and the student shooting, they gave backpacks to New Haven school kids who created art out of it, expressed what that meant about what's happening in the world. When the Coliseum came down, people pulled an all-nighter talking about their memories there. And that place has always challenged us and brought us together in such great ways. So why is it not a loss if it changes? Because I would argue that that work continues in different ways, and that organizations aren't what need to last, it's the work. And that we won because we've had such a great run with Art Space. And maybe we will in a new form, but either way, New Haven won. Until next time, this New Haven Independent Vlog News Summary, remember, always pick up your trash. And if you'd like to see who else won a really good dinner on the lawn right by this compost heap, keep watching for